Okay, it's Kev here. So, video time. As you know, last week we had introduction number, was it 67? And we invited a winner to write a complete essay for me to assess. So that's what we're going to do today. I also wrote my own example to illustrate my points. So, some people think that only the society should be blamed, antisocial activities, two-part question, what causes them, who's responsible. Okay. Now, when you are planning some of your essays, you're going to have to define some of the key terms, because if you don't, your essay will not work. So you start general, move down to the specific. So what you might have to do here, and I do in my example, spell out the key terms. What do you mean by antisocial activities? What does that mean? So, according to some societies, society as a concept ought to assume to hold, ought to assume to help. Why do we have all these verbs here? Should, assume responsibility, which is not the same thing as should be blamed. You hold or assume responsibility is not the same as somebody blaming you for something. So that's not the same thing at all. So that doesn't work. Neither teachers nor parents. What's that got to do with the topic? It says a society. Teachers nor parents seem able to understand the challenges ahead. What challenges? It doesn't say that. It says some people presumably commit antisocial activities. You would have to say who and what those were. Societies to blame. What's the cause? Who's responsible? As regards abusive home environment and unemployment rates, unless, in my view, the state itself will show the shouldering responsibility. It's not about that. It's who should be blamed. You are guilty. You are guilty. Not them taking responsibility. It's not the same thing. Not the same thing at all. Evident that antisocial behaviours are based on individuals' childhood or childhoods. In other words, family of that. So this is basically saying the same. And why do you have to say it in other words? Why not simply say it once? There's no point in saying the same thing twice. So it is evident that antisocial behaviours are based on individuals' childhood, as the family environment has a critical influence on children's psychological health. Okay. In some families, for example, when their kids do something wrong, instead of teaching them how to correct their mistakes or teaching them not to make them, the parents abuse their power. How is it an abuse of power? And punish them. What does that mean? Are you talking about giving them a serious beating? Or are you talking about turning off the Wi-Fi? There's many ways to punish a child. You don't have to beat them with a stick. So, okay. This may cause the kids disaffection towards the society and the world. Why wouldn't it just direct it towards the parents who have punished them? What? So you have a kid and they do something wrong. You take their mobile phone away for a day or two, and then that leads them to hate a society and the world because you've taken their phone away? That doesn't make sense, does it? That doesn't make sense at all. Which then leads to intended, or you mean intentional, or simply resistance. Why would it be intentional? Of course it would be intended or intentional. Resistance against laws and ethics. What are you talking about? What laws? What ethics? Ethics is a moral duty or concept. What are you talking about? Even in the teacher-led education system, even the teacher-led education system cannot be seen to tackle these fundamental. What does now? Pedagogy is the science of teaching. So what does that have to do with antisocial behaviour? So right, we've got three ideas here in a paragraph. Right. I'm going to show you quickly. Right. In other words, one main idea. Why do we have three separate ideas, which is developed? That's not. You simply put three ideas and no explanation. So I've got no idea what that idea to, what that actually means. Furthermore, unemployment, poverty common factors, again, what's that got to do with the topic? People being homeless. And if you are homeless, of course you're not going to have an adequate income because you're homeless. So that makes no sense at all. Why didn't you just keep that? Develop that. Parents, they punish the kids, which leads to this, for example, instead of all this other stuff, which essentially is meaningless. Having said this, it is the government that needs to take measures to why? To ameliorate. Well, that's not the same thing as, right, who's responsible? So to ameliorate means to make better. It's not the same as blaming. It's asking who's to blame. And you're saying the government that needs to take measures. Why? Because they are responsible. That's what it's asking. Well, who's responsible? So you're talking about teacher-led education system. I'm not sure what that's got to do with anything. Unemployment and poverty. Okay, so the government is responsible for those things, if you say so. But what's all this about parents punishing the children? Because here, you say, family, critical. So what's these other ideas for? This needs to begin, and now it's not asking what's the solution. It doesn't ask that. It's not a cause and solution. It's what causes it, who's to blame. That's it. It's not a cause and solution. If it says what are possible solutions, okay. It doesn't say that. Permanent supportive housing for both children and adults escaping abuse. Adults? What's it got to do with adults escaping abuse? What's it got to do with what's affordable housing got to do with what you said about parents punishing their children? What's that got to do with that? And what's this government corruption and collusion with merchants? A strong dissatisfaction of the weak group? What group is that? What are you talking about? Such as, no, violence is against people, not of property, such as what? The intentional? How can you accidentally destroy people's cars? It would be destruction. And obviously, if expensive, it must be owned by rich people. Poor people don't own expensive cars. Can be commonly observed. I'm not sure what that's got to do with the topic either. To conclude, the principles of children actually government should be blamed. Now, right, so finally, it's why do I have to wait to the very last line for you to answer the question? Resulting in, or as a result of social inequality. Right. Okay. So let's have a look. Scroll. Come here. All parts of a prompt appropriately addressed? No. All parts of a prompt appropriately, sufficiently addressed? No. Appropriately addressed? No. Aha, right. All parts of a prompt are addressed. Some may be more fully covered. Position is presented. It's directly relevant to the prompt. Conclusion. Now, I think this is where we are. The conclusion may be unclear, unjustified, or repetitive. Main ideas are relevant, but some may be insufficiently developed, not clear, supporting arguments, evidence. I think that's pretty fair. So I would give it 6 for that. Examiner might even go down further and give it 5. Examiner might even give it 5. But for me today, I'll give it 6. So, cohesion, coherence. I'll give it 6 as well. Examiner, as I say, may not be as forgiving. Now, vocab. Vocab's not too bad. There are some in appropriacies, but it's not too bad. Give it a 7. The grammar and punctuation are not bad, not too bad, so I give that a 7 as well. So it's mainly task response, cohesion, and coherence. So 7, 7, what's that? 14, what's that? 6, 26, what's that? 13. 6.5 then. 6.5. Okay, so let's have a look at my example, and I'll show you this. Okay, according to some, the blame for any kind of antisocial activities should be laid at society, blah, blah, blah. In my view, the causes are poverty and inequality. The government are responsible. Okay, direct and clear. So, what do I mean by antisocial activities? Minor acts, vandalism, low-level crime, graffiti, breaking windows. Okay. Carried out by youths, young people. So, lack of cash, unemployment, lack of opportunity are the causes, are the roots. And where can we see them? Well, this can be proved because it's usually only in the poor parts of town. It's not in the rich parts of like town where people are breaking windows and spraying shit onto walls. It isn't. So, who's to blame? The government. Why? Because they set policies and create laws. The society doesn't do it. The government does. Okay? So the wider community has no power to affect people's lives, as does the state. And then an example of the UK or the Conservatives in the 80s. So, in conclusion, instead of blaming society, in my view, the guilty party is the government, because the wider community has no power to affect the lives and livelihoods of young people. It's the government that creates policies. They do it. If inflation's high, it's their fault. If unemployment's high, it's their fault. They're in charge. So, there you go. That's how I would do that. I'll just put that smaller so you can see the whole essay on the screen. You can just about see that, and you can take a copy of that. Okay, that's good. So, hope that helps. And Intro 68 should be around as well. We'll take a winner out of that, and I'll make another one. So, see you later.